Hey, it is Stephen Rothberg with College Recruiter here for another session of the High Volume Hiring Podcast. My guest today is a good friend of mine. I won't go say exactly how long because it will date us. Well, it's about 20 years.
Yeah.
So I lie. So Jonathan Duarte is the founder and CEO of GoHire. Also a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about that. But Jonathan, for the people who don't know you personally, maybe give them like a 1 minute. Like, who are you?
Yep.
Where do you live? What do you like to do?
Yeah. So I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. Started in this industry couple years out of college, literally in '96, back in the OG days. Started one of the first job boards, and then got married, wife and kids, and one in high school, one in college, and just love being outdoors. I've done 3 Ironman triathlons, and so it's like I guess that endurance of sticking around helps in HR tech too.
Endurance, insanity. There are so many different words for that. So 96, that's funny that you said that. I forgot. So the company that I started that became College Recruiter, the job board, that was the year we went live also.
Yeah.
And so was that Go Jobs? Was
Yeah.
that your site that year?
Yep. Yeah. And then so after Go Jobs, I did a deal with Ronnie and Paul from Indeed, sold all that to them, and then I built GoHire, a small business background screening company, which you'll love this. In 2014, when I started there, you could not get a background check without a 3 to 5 day wait period and faxing information to HireRight and to Sterling and all that. Like it
Yeah.
was still paper driven. So we
Yeah.
changed that model, to make it fast for companies.
Yeah, the days of the fax machine. My
Oh,
my wife and I are catching up or watching for the first time The Wire,
oh yeah.
and yeah, fax machines, and if anybody has a cell phone, it's a flip phone. It's a thankfully in so many ways it's a different world. So
Yeah, well, we'll
so
use that
from
analogy in our conversation because in even high volume, it's almost like people are faxing candidates. That's how
yeah.
bad it is.
Yeah, yeah. And so Go Hire.
Yeah.
My shorthand descriptor, a chatbot for mid-market companies hiring for sure dozens, maybe hundreds of employees a year. Is that
Yep.
about
Yeah, and
right?
it's chatbots over web as well as text. And to most companies,
Ah,
the most important part is text. And using text messaging as the channel of choice for our frontline workers.
okay.
Yeah.
So when there's your ideal customer is
Hmm.
going to be not the Fortune 100, not a massive government agency, but could be a healthcare company, a trucking company, a logistics company that maybe is over the next year or two, they're going to grow from, say, 500 to 750 employees, or 1,000 to 1,100 this year, something in that
E-
range. Is that right?
Exactly. Frontline workers, and it could be a division of a larger organization that are using their local recruiting budget for their logistics. It could be like, we've got some Fortune 500s, but we work on the manufacturing
Oh,
side of that business, not the massive retail or global footprint.
oh, that totally makes sense. So, even before you and I knew each other, which was, I think, Eisenhower was still president. Um,
Go
but
Ike.
but I worked for Honeywell, which at the time was a Fortune 50 company, 80,000 employees, but it was very decentralized.
Yeah.
And so we had like the automation unit and the aerospace unit. And some of those business units, I'm guessing, were a few thousand employees
Yep.
and not high turnover. So we might have had 3,000 employees in a Phoenix based company that maybe hired 100 to 200 a year. So a division like that would be actually a good fit for
Yep.
a Go Hire.
Yeah, we call it recruiting automation for recruiters and HR. So
Yeah.
it's not the enterprise solution that's going to take 6 months to implement. It's something literally you can buy with a credit card and get started in a couple days.
Okay, so now we're starting to get into, and I'm glad that we've gotten to this,
Yep.
the differences between like a mid-market solution,
Hmm.
GoHire,
Yep.
and an enterprise solution, like a Paradox.
Yep.
So speed to implementation,
Yep.
right? That's one of them.
Exactly.
Another one, it sounds like you might only have like a single point of contact,
Yep.
a recruiting manager, or
Yep.
somebody like that, where a Paradox, I would think they're going to never work with an organization that doesn't have many people involved, developers, HRIS people, the recruiting, talent acquisition leaders, et cetera. Is that
And big integrations. Yeah, like I mean, an install that's going to need a project manager, um, multi languages, and not just a couple, but we're talking like a company could have 6 languages they need, and they need web chat and texting on a global scale. So when you kind of compact that down, very similar technology, but uh, purpose built for a smaller organization. It's something that doesn't have to take 6 months to go through the IT team to get approval.
right? So if there's a company that's been thinking that an enterprise level solution is just sort of too much money, too complicated for them to install, what's the expression, hunting a fly with a bazooka. It's just
Yeah.
overkill, right?
Yep.
What do they give up? What are some things that like a Paradox would offer to a McDonald's
Yep.
that a GoHire would just not be offering to like a regional hamburger chain that needs to hire 150 people a year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the reality is a lot of this tech is similar. It's just the deep level of integration that might occur. Because if you
Ah,
think about McDonald's with the Paradox implementation, they've bought what's called a short code, which is you've seen these signs that say text jobs to the number for Paradox is 25000.
yeah,
That number for McDonald's, they have their own number,
right.
and that's a $15,000 lease every year to have that short code. So it takes 6 months. Well, it could take 6 months to get the do the licensing to get it. So a smaller business who wants to use a QR code, put signage in their on their building, around their manufacturing facility. They want a QR code that texts candidates, and they want to be able to text candidates. They don't need that. They need what we call a toll-free number, and that we can get in a day, which is different than doing this big long process. So what we try to do is we eliminate the long processes that might need big integration with multiple business units. Because say another example would be if you're hiring trucking but you
Mhm.
work for Dollar General, well, the trucking team is using 10th Street for their logistics hiring, their applicant tracking system, whereas
Okay,
the retail team might be using iSIMS. And
sure.
if you do the entire corporate integration, you've got to do 2 integrations across both. And so what you're trying to do is just say, look, I need manufacturing or logistics or even a seasonal hiring event. I need to spin something up quickly. And my alternative is to call a staffing firm to get me 100 people for Q4, or I need a system where I can install and hire quickly and text a bunch of people quickly to get them into the scheduled for interviews.
Cool. So is from the employer's perspective, they go online, they look at GoHire, that the pricing's right, the turnaround time is right, et cetera. They sign up with you. What are the onboarding steps? Like what are because I think you're going to need to know from them, what questions do candidates
Exactly.
ask? What are
Yep.
the answers? Is it kind of a tree that if they enter exactly this, then return this answer? Is there some kind of, we used to call it fuzzy logic. Now people, I think, are generalizing that to call that AI. Like if the candidate doesn't type in exactly the right words, do they get an answer back? How does GoHire handle that?
Yeah, so there's two things. And so this is a great distinguishing point. In a really simple tree, say we've worked with healthcare, we work with retail, we work with restaurants. Guess what? They all have the same minimum criteria. Like you have to be 18, you have to pass a drug screen, you have to have the ability, you have to have the right to work, right? So literally in our system, you can click a button to say, look, I'm trying to hire not accounting, but I'm trying to hire logistics or manufacturing. And the whole thing spins up in literally an hour. It's like done. And then you can customize it. So that's how you can get out quick, and you can customize the question. So it allows our side to get the client up fast.
Okay.
And then they can come back and say, okay, I want to customize these questions to make them more relevant to my business. And then if they're multi-location or they need additional conditional logic, like say they have 2 locations and they want different teams to get the different candidates presented to them because of the location or the category of job, then we have to customize it. But it's a week customization at max in most clients. And then the onboarding from the client is they get an onboarding email as soon as they sign up. And it's the biggest area of, I'd say, implementation is a client connecting their calendar. Because one of the things you want to do, like the biggest trick in all of this, and this is where this whole thing's going, because we had talked about it separately, and other things about like where's job boards, where's recruiting going, is the biggest pain point that recruiters are seeing today when I talk to directors of recruiting is that they're only talking to 15 to 20% of their candidates that apply, even into their ATS. And part of that reason is because there's manual processes, and then they have to pick up the phone or they send them an email, and we have that big drop off. So from a job board side, we're presenting candidates, yet the recruiter team, they're out there trying to herd cats and get back engaged with these candidates. But if they wait too long, they can't get them. And going back to the fax analogy, if we're trying to use email and phone to try to reach a mobile first community, you might as well just take out your fax machine, because you're going to have just as bad luck. I mean, literally, you're only talking to 15 to 20%. Most people don't even know their number. But where you can send a candidate a text message and ask them if they fit these criteria, and it's a conversation. It's not artificial intelligence, like this question, this response, this question, this response. And then if they say yes, they meet those criteria, we connect them to your calendar and say, okay, Stephen, you've already got like these things already set up.
Yep.
What do you have for availability at 15-minute increments? Again, all customized. You have to choose those.
Yep.
But the idea is recruiting teams they have to post jobs on job boards. They have to call candidates back. They have to do that because of one thing. They want qualified candidates on the phone.
Yeah.
So if you can get qualified candidates on the phone and you don't have to do all that other stuff, that's what we want.
Yeah.
So that's the technology is there for recruiters to get that now as an individual buyer, and you don't need an enterprise solution to do it.
Yeah. And then the recruiter, the recruiting manager, whoever it is that's going to get connected with that candidate, they might block off from 1 to 3 o'clock on Tuesday and 9 to 11 o'clock on Thursday, and then just let the system block individual interviews in 15-minute chunks, whatever the appropriate amount of time is. Yep. The candidate's so friendly to them because they can go through the process, decide, am I qualified? Am I not? Here's my application. They can get an interview even today or tomorrow. And then that recruiting person, recruiting manager, whatever, basically like jumps on a call, does that screening. And if it's like, hey, Jonathan, you know what? You're great. I want to schedule a full interview in the office, on Zoom, whatever. At that point, they're on the phone
Exactly.
and they can easily compare
Yep.
calendars. Or you know what? They shoot them a Calendly link, or whatever.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's that first part of that engagement is the biggest gap right now. And it's the one that costs the most time. It's
and the candidates,
that,
right? If you don't get back to
resume,
these
you know,
candidates in a week, you're going to lose them.
yeah, like a week.
They're already hired by someone else.
You know, or you're in a manufacturing apply on Thursday noon, and you go back until because you're backed up with other candidates you're trying to herd the cats with. They're gone, and that's why you're only getting very few results. You know, there's a couple of numbers that justify this stuff. Our clients that are using the interview scheduling, sending a text and asking the candidate the questions and then interviewing them, they don't follow up with email and phone anymore. Like, that's done. Like that's like the fax machine. That's old. We don't do that at all. The reason why is because instead of talking to 15% of the candidates, they're talking to 82%. And it happens quick. They self-schedule in 24 hours. And then because of that speed, what's happening is you get to choose the candidates.
Right.
Because
you don't have the ghosting. You don't have the people who just,
and you're not the fifth company trying to reach the candidate. You're the first. And that's how you, so it's just the process. You got to kind of get through that. Like, okay, I'm not waiting in the ATS until I have a resume. If I see them on Indeed, I text them. I give them the questions. If they respond back, and our technology is set up that if they don't respond back and set up an interview, we send them a reminder. And then if they don't respond to that one and set up an interview, we send a third reminder. So again, it's all that manual processes that are stacking up that we can't do. We can't do in parallel. That's the delays, and it's just the coolest thing. That's, you know, having done this for so many years, you know, as you have too, to see the breakthrough of these big, you know, gaps that we never could solve for. That's what turns me on about, you know, 54, starting another, you know, friggin' startup, is really solving big problems right now for companies.
Very cool. Well, for listeners who want to reach you, where should they go?
So GoHire.com or on LinkedIn. And Steve will put that beautiful my URL.
Right
it's
there.
Best LinkedIn profile. So you can't really miss that one. You can actually type that into Google and you'll find me too.
That's crazy. Awesome. Jonathan, it has been fun. I look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.